Hello, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. So here's a stat that should make you sit up and take notice. 13% of all African Americans over the age of 20 have diagnosed diabetes. Are you shocked? Why is this disease so prevalent in the African American community? Why are we more likely than whites to suffer from blindness, kidney disease, and amputations as a result of diabetes? And most importantly, what can we do to prevent this disease? We'll have the answers up next on Another View on Health, plus an unusual way to conduct a Women's Wellness Summit, and we'll hear from Congressman Bobby Scott. We've got a lot coming your way next on Another View, so please stay tuned.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. We have two Dr. Newbys in the house today for Another View on Health, and we'll learn all we need to know about diabetes. But first, I want to tell you about a women's wellness event that's happening online. Internist and conscious life coach Dr. Indy Jones joins us via telephone from the greater Atlanta area. Hello, Dr. Jones. How are you?
Good. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
I'm doing great. So tell us about the Women's Health and Wellness Summit.
Yes, I'm very, very excited to share this information with you and your listening audience. So what I have created is a summit that will take place May 20th. Mm-hmm. It's going to be in the evening from 6 to 8 p.m., and it's going to be on Facebook Live. So what the summit is all about is what I want to do, let's just say, what's during this is I want to motivate, inspire, and challenge women to begin to be mindful of their health. Mm-hmm. Because as women, oftentimes we're so busy being the caretaker for everyone else but ourselves. So this is a panel of experts that will join me, and we'll talk about several topics. I have a cardiologist. Mm-hmm. I have a family physician, and she's also an OBGYN. I have a mental health nurse who specializes in anxiety and depression. And of course, myself, I'm an internist, so I practice general medicine in the hospital setting. We'll have a nutritionist. We'll talk about some healthy tips for better nutrition and also some healthy tips on how you can do some exercise at home. You know, mm-hmm. Who has time to exercise, right? It's very hard. It's very hard. So this is intended to be a holistic summit to sort of give women a jump start to being more mindful of their health.
So why did you decide to do it on Facebook Live? I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of women in the Atlanta area where you are, but you're opening this up to virtually the world in terms of participation.
Yes, absolutely, because, again, women are so busy, and it's very hard to impact a large number of women. This is the digital age, so I said, why not take advantage of that? Mm-hmm. And also, after the summit, I want to be able to create a community where women can interact with each other online, share their stories, get some input about how they're dealing with different life changes, be it menopause, grief and loss. There's so many aspects to our health that gets neglected. Mm-hmm. So I'm all about the mind, body, and spirit interconnection, because when one area gets affected, so do the others. Okay, so this is a free summit, and if someone wants to sign up to become a part of the Facebook Live, where do they go? Okay, there are two options, because I know not everyone uses Facebook, but if they do, all they have to do is go to my website, which is mindfulhealthforwomen.com. And that's a number 4. Okay. Mindfulhealthforwomen.com. They will click on Summit, and then they'll be asked to join the group. And so they will be ushered in, and then when I go live, then they'll know all about it. Okay. Now, the other option, for those who don't utilize Facebook, you can join us on Zoom. And Zoom you can use on your phone, on your laptop, or other device. Mm-hmm. So in that scenario, just send me an email to coachingwithdocindie@gmail.com, and that's DOCINDIE. Mm-hmm. And in the subject line, just put Summit. And then I will forward the information for you to call in to participate or log in on your laptop. Okay, so that is, if you don't want to go through Facebook, but just log on your computer or your phone, you can go to coachingwithdocindie.com.
summit@gmail.com. Send Summit
Yes.
in the information line, and you will send them
Right.
the information for Zoom.
Right.
Okay.
But I
Or
want them to do that ASAP, okay?
Okay.
Because that can fill up very quick. So they can do that now so that they can get on the list and I can give them the instructions.
okay, and then others who might want to join by Facebook Live, they would go to Mindful Health. Oops, no, here it is. mindfulhealthforwomen.com and click on Summit, and then join the Facebook group
The
from there.
Facebook group, that's correct.
Fantastic.
And,
Go
right,
ahead.
and all of the participants, they will have the opportunity to win a free massage. So, ladies, don't procrastinate. Either join the Facebook group or send me an email to join via Zoom. Either way, you'll have a chance to win.
Okay, Doc Indy, we will be placing this information on our Another View website also, and anyone who has questions, they can also call our office, and we'd be happy to pass along the information. It's the Women's Health and Wellness Summit. It is May 20th, 2018, from 6 to 8 p.m., hosted by Dr. Indy Jones, who is an internist and conscious life coach. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Jones. We appreciate you. Take care
Barbara,
now.
just one more last thing. If they can't participate in the moment, then it will be recorded, and I can still get the footage to them.
Fantastic.
So
Okay, great. Thank you so very
right.
much for joining us. We appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
All righty.
Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
You too. Bye-bye. So back in the day, they used to call it the sugar. We're talking about diabetes, and it's an epidemic in the African American community. Why is the Black community disproportionately affected by this disease, and what can we do about it? Joining me now in the studio is diabetes educator, certified diabetes educator, Dr. Olivia Newby. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back.
And thank you.
We appreciate it. And she is the sister-in-law of our favorite Another View co-host on health, Dr. Keith Newby. Howdy.
How are you?
I'm doing great. How
Wonderful.
you doing?
Excellent. Good to be alive
Yes,
today.
it is. It is very good to be alive. Absolutely. No question. So, Dr. Newby, as in Olivia Newby, let's start out first with a very basic understanding of what is diabetes so that people will know what we're talking about.
It is when your body cannot properly use insulin, which is a hormone that helps the glucose into the cells of the body. And you get type 2 diabetes at any age, but you're at a higher risk if you're older, overweight, and have a family history, as well as physically inactive, and a woman who has had gestational diabetes. So those are some of the characteristics, along with the pathophysiology reasons of why we may develop diabetes.
So that statistic, 13% of all African Americans over the age of 20 have diagnosed diabetes. Are we at epidemic proportions at this point?
I would like
Are we
to
close
say
though?
yes, and very much so. Very much so. It is such a devastating disease in our community. And once you are diagnosed with diabetes, you incur a additional cost of over $13,000 annually to your medical bill. So you are 2 to 3 times higher than someone without diabetes to be affected financially.
And if you get diabetes, Dr. Keith Newby, then it also affects you in other ways, does it not? In terms of heart disease or kidney disease, et cetera.
If you look at the kind of statistics, the reason why we push the issue so much is because of the complications. You talk about blindness, neurologic sequelae. People will get neuropathy problems and healing.
Neuropathy.
Neuropathy means you can't feel things like you normally feel. So people will injure themselves, and a lot of times not even know they've injured themselves because they don't have the nerve endings are damaged, so they don't feel things. You get vascular disease, which is probably the most prominent one. Of course, for me as a cardiologist, and it's not just heart vascular disease, but we're talking peripheral vascular disease, meaning if you have blockages in your leg arteries. So that's when you see the amputation rates and people with vascular disease, you see that, then kidney disease. So, and unfortunately, so if you look at any dialysis center, and I've mentioned this before, you're not going to see many Caucasian people in dialysis centers, I guarantee it's going to be at least 90% African American, if not more than that. And part of it's because of the risk factors.
So, to either one of you, is this genetic or is it something we're doing lifestyle-wise that is causing us
a lot
to
of
get...
it? The risk for complications, if you're a smoker, that throws you in there, overweight. And we tend to not acknowledge the role of being overweight. Having that BMI over a body mass index over 30, we tend to assume that we are big boned.
So no more with the we just thick.
We
kind of
just
thing,
thick and just plump and sexy.
Yeah.
Now those acronyms or the way we dismiss it has evidence based as being a part of developing diabetes. So that plays a big role in time of trying to reduce your incidence of having diabetes.
So, Olivia, let me ask you this. What are some of the myths then? For example, I've heard people say, well, you just get diabetes because you just eat too much sugar. That's not the case, is it? Or is that a part of it?
Eating sugar, if your diet is high in processed foods, you're at risk for developing it. If you're overweight, the sugar, as in the term sugar, is not an answer in itself. Of course, I mentioned the inability of your beta cell not being adequate, and you are not producing enough insulin, and you develop it. And what makes you at risk for developing it is being overweight. So if you eat a lot of candy, a sugary, yes, that puts you at risk, but not eating a lot of sugar per se.
And so chiming in what you asked earlier, and I think it's kind of a combination of genetics and lifestyle. It's not just one versus the other, and I'm not sure how much one predominates over the other, but one of the things I think, and Olivia can chime in on this one since this is her area of expertise, I think you'll find, and what we try to tell patients on the cardiology end as well, is a lot of complications can be prevented if you just kind of follow the instructions. If you really look at altering your lifestyle, a lot of times it can reverse. Now, whether or not, I think you'll always have diabetes, but it'll be truly controlled. And if you look at the complication rate, it's directly proportional to control. The worse off your diabetes, the more apt you are to have complications. The more controlled you are, the less apt you have complications. So that's one of the things that we really push and emphasize. And when you talk about that 13%, in all honesty, about the risk, I think it's a lot higher than that. That's just what we know about. Yeah, because you look at the
people who don't go in and try to figure out.
Because when the first thing, anytime I have somebody comes in with a heart attack, the first thing I look for is diabetes. The absolute first thing I'm looking for, the A1C level, to see where we are, because at least 7 times out of 10, I'm gonna find that being elevated. Yes, to some degree.
Wow.
And Keith, that brings me to the point, even if you don't know they have diabetes and not diagnosed, that brings us to the pre-diabetes.
Yep.
And now we know if you have pre-diabetes, your risk of heart disease is prevalent. More, you bring it in.
It's almost as high as if you're diabetic.
Pre-diabetes. So, and another thing
pre-diabetes means that you are tending towards getting it? Is that what that means?
No. You're at risk, and based on the numbers, your glucose, and another factor we talk about, a A1C level, the diagnostic tests, help determine your and you can reverse pre-diabetes. And as you mentioned, why a lifestyle of sedentary lifestyle, physical inactivity plays a huge part of you developing diabetes. And so when Keith finds the heart disease, he also look at the factors of the weight, how much exercise plays a part of this pre-diabetes.
So are there symptoms that let you know that you're getting diabetes or that you're becoming pre-diabetic? Is there anything you feel?
No. We usually find that on for your root. That's why, again, important to get your yearly diagnostic lab, or if you're at risk factor, get that blood work on a yearly basis.
One of the things we talk about a lot, and I've mentioned it in the past, is that unfortunately, so especially as it reflects on our community, diabetics, people with hypertension. The dangers of that are that people don't necessarily feel anything, and majority don't feel anything.
Cholesterol.
You think about high
they think they're
cholesterol,
okay.
and they're all kind of part and parcel of the same thing. Usually one triggers the other, and you see all this combination of these multiple things, and you'll find that unfortunately we as a people, if we're not feeling anything, we tend to ignore signs. We just do. I mean, we don't. If you know you're gaining weight, if you know that your activity level's down, and you say, "Well, I feel fine," and we tend to avoid the doc. That's why I say I think that number is a lot higher than 13%. I don't have anything to prove that other than just experience of dealing with people who, when we, and I'm not. I don't even claim to try to treat diabetes. I leave that to my brother, my sister-in-law. But I discover it a lot,
Right.
a lot, and I look for it. I see somebody that's overweight, I'm looking for it. Because I know that if they're coming to me for chest pain, I'm looking for those things because I have to make a decision. Do I think this person potentially has heart disease? So again, we're like detectives. Our job is to try to get to the facts of the matter. And we try to get to the facts by looking at the pieces of the puzzle. So when somebody comes in, I'm looking at them as an individual, what they look like, how they appear, what their body structure is like. I'm looking for multiple things, and I'm looking for diabetes. I'm looking for a cholesterol problem. I'm looking for hypertension. I'm looking for those that smoke, people with genetic predisposition for heart problems. That is all that thing we look for to try to make that discovery.
To determine
Yeah.
where you go from there.
Exactly.
440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240 are the numbers to call to join our conversation. Have you been diagnosed with diabetes? Has it changed? Have you changed your diet, the way you live, your lifestyle because of it? 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. So the key here is to either prevent it.
Pre-diabetes. That's
That's the key.
don't let the pre-diabetes fool you in thinking it's not a problem. So my platform is to say, if you have diabetes, yes, let's work to reduce those complications. But how do we deal with pre-diabetes, which can prevent you from getting the big DM?
Got you. Okay. And diet and what we eat and how we live plays a huge role in reversing that pre-diabetes.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. So tell us about your center and what's been going on. What are you guys doing to work to help people to prevent diabetes?
Well, what we now know that the statistics for pre-diabetes is epidemic. And we also know that the age between, if you're 65 and older, you have a 25% chance of developing diabetes. So the older you are, the statistics, the percentage of adults with diabetes increases with age. And
Now, is this type 1 and type 2 or type 2? Type 2.
Focused on type 2.
Okay.
Reaching a high of 25% among those aged 65 and older. 25. So if your risk factors are there, now with the health CDC and health agencies are promoting pre-diabetes workshop programs to get you involved. This is actually the first time the government has decided to be proactive on a disease.
Wow.
No other disease have they sought proactive.
Well,
To try to
interesting.
keep it
And interesting
going.
when you're on that point. And if you have anybody that's smart enough in the government, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but one of the things that you look at is cost of like Medicare, Medicaid. When you start looking at those prices and the cost that it takes to take care of somebody, it makes sense that you should be paying attention, because if you can get in there and create that issue and prevent
Keep them
that,
from
if you could get in there and start looking at how do we nix it from the start, then all of a sudden your total costs go down because you're addressing those things that otherwise would trigger its occurrence and the complications. And that's what I see being in the hospital all the time is people wait till it gets really, really bad. There's ridiculous levels of diabetes markers, and they come to the emergency room And
at
with,
that point, it's almost too. I mean,
Yeah.
not too late.
You're
but
patching.
but
You're
you,
you're
patching.
patching.
So
yeah,
you
right.
patch, we fixing, we plug in the hole. But why do that? If I could say we start now to make that change so that you won't have all of the complications we know will happen if you don't do anything about it.
So one of the issues, we love to eat our soul food, and we love to eat kind of starches and that kind of thing. And I know that's something we can talk about. But we also struggle with, in a lot of our communities, actually having access to healthy foods. And so, is there a way that we can start to operate or make changes despite those barriers?
Yes. One of the things is eating more frozen if it's not fresh. Frozen is a great opportunity. Less canned foods, and finding more of, I often will say, more whole food, plant-based. Well, what does that mean? That means nothing added, nothing taken away. Eat the apple, not the apple juice. Eat the orange, not the orange juice. Anything that promotes you to eat more of a plant-based.
Eat the real thing.
The real thing. We and what we are Western society. We have a diet high in meat and processed foods. If we could focus to limit that, to eat foods that are prepared more at home, prepare more than for one day. In our communities, we often have fast food restaurants, which is processed, high in salt, sugar, and fat. Just making, you don't have to do it all at one time. You can one day a week and make change, and that's what the Healthy Living Center is.
I've thought of one thing that I read where they were saying, if you just drink more water, get rid of the sweet tea and sodas. And drink water. That would be like
your
a
visits
huge.
to it, right, Keith? The sweet tea.
That's what I tell you. I was laughing. I think about that was that movie. Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins.
Yeah.
The lady drank that tea. She said, it's like liquid diabetes.
It is.
Our phones are lit up, so let's take some calls. Dr. Lisa joins us from Newport News. Hi, Dr. Lisa. You're on the air.
Hi, yes. I'm a family physician who actually practices in Chesapeake, and at one point, probably 50% of my patients were diabetic patients. What we see is, I do see a lot of cultural difference in my African-American patients, and it also is somewhat socioeconomic, that food is loved, and particularly sugary foods are loved, and we need to break that paradigm. The American Academy of Family Physicians and Pediatrics are recommending that children not be given any sugary drinks as a regular drink, and diabetes really starts at the very, very young ages. I also do volunteer work in Honduras, where it has really struck me when I go to villages. So these are the same at-risk Indian indigenous background people. And if we go to villages that are far away, where Coke and Pepsi and all those people haven't made inroads, there's no diabetes in the villages, zero.
Wow.
And when we go to areas that are close into cities, where one of the few things, if you don't have a lot of money, you can give your children penny candy, or you give them a pop or something like that, a soda pop as a treat. And the skyrocketing incidence of diabetes in those areas, we'll see 25% diabetes in a town like that with the exact same population. And the World Health Organization has found the same thing they've been doing some studies in Africa that are showing the exact same thing happening in Africa. I'm on my way, interestingly, to legislative summit for the Medical Society of Virginia. And one of the things being proposed by the Medical Society of Richmond is a sugar tax in the state of Virginia. And it's been very successful, actually, in areas where it's been impacted to get the cost of sugary items to be much higher. And it does change habits of people.
And that is what they did in New York City, as a matter of fact.
Canada.
Let me let our guests respond, because we've got a ton of phone calls, and I want to get to as many as we can. Dr. Lisa, thanks so much for a ton of information that you just called in about. But the whole idea of a sugar tax, ways to get people to stop going for the the sweet and unhealthy foods.
Those are excellent ideas, and thank you. But one of the things, and I am a family nurse practitioner and run a healthy living diabetes educational classes, I often find that if we can introduce ways to change small, and that has been a pivotal part in teaching the people, the patients about, okay, if you do candy one day, find a apple on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So working with them have proven to be a great asset in itself.
If you're just joining us, we're talking about diabetes prevention with certified diabetes educator Dr. Olivia Newby and my co-host for Another View on Health, cardiologist Dr. Keith Newby.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think if you look at really, I mean, I hear them on the tax issue. The only concern I think I ultimately have is having it replaced with the educational part. It was what Olivia was mentioning earlier, because unfortunately, a lot of people do what they've been taught to do all their life, and if they don't have the understanding, the access to the foods, because you look at cost of food, is kind of interesting. You know, I could go to McDonald's and I could get $1 meal and get a whole bunch of stuff. Exactly. You know, or I can, or like the oodles and noodles, which our culture tends to like. That's got 8 tons of salt in it. You know, right. If you put the stuff in there, it's all processed material. Everything's instant. You know, oatmeal. You know, all that stuff is high in sugar. Because really, when you look at cost effectiveness, if you're actually on a fixed budget,
those things are cheaper.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out how do I, really.
But Olivia, you told me that you in your classes you work with foods that you can buy from, the big box stores, from Walmarts, from those types of places. So you don't necessarily have to go spend tons of money.
And you know what? I'm 100% against the oodles or noodles, but let's be real. They have them. So if you're going to force yourself to have that oodles or noodles, whatever the case, take a double bag of vegetables. Mix the oodles or noodles with the vegetables and leave out the salt. Yes, we now you got an opportunity to have some broccoli, some spinach, some kale in there, and it didn't cost you enough. The bag is $2. The oodles and noodles is 90 cents. So you got a $3 meal for the whole household. And if you like oodles and noodles, I'm not going to take it away, but I want to work with it. And instead of 2 packs of them, let's go to 1 and double up the vegetables.
And drink that water.
And drink that water. So we have made both of us happy, you and me.
Let's talk to Joe in Suffolk. Hi, Joe. You're on the air.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for taking my call. This is definitely near and dear to my heart. I'm 52 years old. I'm a type 2 diabetic, and I've been type 2 for 20 years. The first 12 years, I really didn't take care of myself. I let myself get fat, and because I've been in sales and construction my whole career, I spent a lot of time on the road. So I've ate a lot of processed food, a lot of fast food. And about 8 years ago, I lost my job, lost my health insurance, and I had to basically start eating the right way. Vegetables and fruits every day because I didn't have the insulin. And now I don't take insulin, but I do take some other stuff, but it's certainly not in a needle, which is great because that's a big downfall to having diabetes. But the other great part about it is that I've lost 25 pounds since then, and I feel better at 52 than I did at 42. However, I did get AMD, which basically means that in my left eye, my retina has detached, and I've had surgery. And once a month, I go in for shots in my eye.
Wow.
So that's my story about being a diabetic, and I encourage people like myself who have had, lived the lifestyle that I live, and as far as my ethnicity, I'm Latino, and we're very, very prone to diabetes, as I've learned over the years. But I would just encourage people to take it seriously. lose weight.
And Joe,
Don't-
congratulations on your weight loss. That's awesome. That is awesome. That's awesome
Thank
news.
you. But it's like I said, I just unfortunately I've had to have surgery because of diabetes, and thank God now I don't have it.
Yeah.
I mean now I don't have high blood sugar like I used to, but it's a serious thing.
Okay.
It's a serious thing.
Thank you very much for the call. We appreciate that. Olivia, what do people need to make that first step? Because it feels like if you could just get that first step going, you might be able to push through and to be able to do the things you need to do.
Small steps. Small step. If you have a sedentary life, truck drivers, they often are prone to diabetes. I often say while you're waiting on your truck to unload, get out and walk. So if you're sitting a lot, start walking 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Just small movement. If it's a difficulty, you're eating processed food, when you're at that fast food late at night, find something with a lettuce or a tomato on there, something of a plant base. Add that to it. If you don't, just small steps along the way until you achieve a significant goal. Once you set your goal, then you work towards it day by day in programs like the diabetes prevention program, or with a diabetes educator to coach you on changing your behavior.
How do people find out about the diabetes prevention programs that you have?
You can go on the CDC website and look for what's in your area, and we are in the Norfolk area, so we offer 2 diabetes prevention programs currently in progress. And because our area has a lot of patients who are overweight, we offer weight loss programs as well as hypertension programs. All of these to reduce this incident and, like the caller said, complications, the eye.
Haley joins us from Newport News. Hi, Haley. You're on the air.
Hi. Yes. Thanks for taking my call.
Uh-huh.
I have several comments, I guess. The first would be actually a question. How much does insulin resistance have a role in developing type 2 diabetes? The second thing I wanted to ask about or wonder about is I have a multinodular goiter. My thyroid is enlarged due to nodules, and my mother has issues. I know plenty of other Black women who have thyroid issues, whether it be a goiter, Hashimoto's, whatever it may be, and as a result, also have issues with diabetes and insulin resistance. And I know that they're all connected and that they play an important role in our bodies, of course, directing our hormones. So I was wondering if someone could speak on that. And the other thing...
Okay, that's the last one because we don't have a lot of time.
I'm sorry. Okay, the last thing is I have some friends who have type 1 diabetes, and they've used a ketogenic diet, a high-fat, low-carb diet, to really regulate and get it under control. And I was wondering about that for type 2 diabetes. And that's it. I'm out.
Okay, go ahead, Dr. Newby.
Most of the time, the insulin resistant is related to your BMI. If your BMI is elevated above the 30, the goal is to be between 25 and 30. Anything above that, that's you want to work towards bringing that number within to lessen the insulin resistance. And if you have a BMI over 40, of course, that really makes it more difficult for you to, if you have diabetes, to bring that under control. So it depends on where, if that's a part of your health makeup. Type 1, all my information on type 1 is insulin, because your pancreas and your beta cell is non-function, completely destroyed, and that the treatment is insulin. So that's the kind of...
So not by diet, but by the
that's
medication.
That's organ related.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Haley. We appreciate the phone call. Did you want to add something, Keith?
Well, I would just say on the, she asked about the multinodular goiter.
Right.
There are a lot of patients have that, and there's definitely an association, because all that's part of the endocrine system, but I see more not related than I do see related. I think there may be just two simultaneous issues happening at the same time. But there are some clear associations. But some of it's based on the functioning of the thyroid as well, and that's a separate issue. Because you can have a goiter, then the functioning of the thyroid is totally normal.
Totally different.
Totally normal.
So, Dr. Olivia Newby, let me ask you this: if I want greens, because I love greens, but you're saying let's cook them differently than we normally do, because I can't have my fatback or my ham hock in those greens.
That's the hint. That's the underlying question.
The hint, wasn't it?
Awesome question. I love it because I do cooking classes, cooking without animal fat. Awesome. It tastes well. I use a lot of onions, celery, carrots as a base to season, and sun-dried tomatoes. All of those to prepare herbs, your rosemary.
So part of this
that.
too, though, is that you got to tell people they have to be willing to have a mindset to change.
Isn't that what pre-diabetes and diabetes and lifestyle about? Dr. Keefe said to change. If you don't want his visits to come to him all the time, change. But yes, you have to willing to change. And yes, healthy food can taste good. There's this myth that if it's diabetic and you got to eat healthy food, it doesn't taste. But really, it tastes phenomenal, right, Dr. Key?
Yes, I've been with Olivia, so I've sampled the goods.
Yeah.
And she is a phenomenal cook, I will have to say, and everybody.
I got my training.
But you can eat meat. You're not saying
no.
Yes, she is saying
limited.
Yeah.
And if you do the government My Plate, which is Michelle Obama, half your plate vegetable, a quarter your plate meat, and a quarter of your plate starch, whole grain.
Yeah,
that's it.
Because I don't like change much. I mean, I do, but I don't. So I have had to learn, because you got to change if you're trying to get where you want to be in life. Because I tell people all the time, you can mess around if you want to, you're going to be crap out of luck and having a bunch of heart disease and problems, and you'd be seeing me all the time, which you don't want to do. Well, she does have a way of introducing things that I wouldn't have thought would have been as good as they were. I went to her house for Thanksgiving dinner, and I was really impressed with things that I never would have touched. I would walk right past that stuff in any other Thanksgiving dinner. But
give me an example of one thing.
What did you have that last? Because you had some nice stuff at that last.
I had stuffed peppers with something brown, whole grain rice with some beans, and I added some meat for the. For the meat
usually if I can't identify it, I don't eat it. But that's why I did remember what she had there. But I knew it was all good. I was actually impressed.
We love sweet potatoes, so I the veggetti now. I make sweet potato and carrot noodle salad with craisin. Everybody like carrot and everybody likes sweet potatoes. Put a vinaigrette dressing on it. It is awesome.
Well, that is a different way to eat it than the sweet potato pudding that we make with the butter and the sugar and the...
Yes. So I take everything we eat ordinarily and just put a different spin on it.
Okay. One thing I want to interject real quick that I want to make sure people do understand, the associated diagnoses that go along with the diabetes and what have you, and people get on me. I'm always searching for like sleep apnea, because I have a lot of patients with that, ton of patients with sleep apnea, and I discovered a lot because I get a lot of people with chest pain, shortness of breath, things, and I can't find a heart or primarily lung issue, but I do discover sleep apnea a lot, and there's a strong association of sleep apnea.
Between diabetes and sleep apnea.
Very, very, very strong association, especially in the African-American population.
Wow. Keith, didn't we say that will also, most of them tend to have that BMI over 35, 40?
Everything is kind of together. When you look at the blood pressure, it's like everything begets the other thing. But what came first, the chicken or the egg, we don't always know. But if you start gaining weight, your risk for diabetes goes up. Then your risk of hypertension goes up, risk for sleep apnea goes up, risk for heart disease goes up, risk for kidney disease, stroke, all that stuff. And it's all part and parcel of the same thing, but the underlying factor is always weight. And that's the one that everybody gets bent out of shape when you bring it up, And I know, and I hear people, and actually sometimes you just want to avoid it. But the bottom line is you can run, but you can't hide.
Can't hide, and you got to get it done. And you're preaching to me. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm telling you, I am listening. Absolutely. Give us the phone number to your center, Dr. Olivia Newby, and we got 1:30 left. So how do people reach you?
942-8020.
942-8020. That is the Healthy Living Center.
Norfolk.
Absolutely. And that is, they have Fork to Table. There is a culinary event on Saturday, May 19th at 11:30 a.m. and it does have limited seating. So if you're interested, talking about Fork to Table, how to cook.
Without using a knife, but how...
Oh, okay. Then call for 942-8020 and make your reservation. Doctors Newbies.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for joining us. Dr. Olivia Newby, certified diabetes educator. Appreciate you being here. And always, Keith, it's a pleasure with you.
A pleasure.
And we will be right back.
Hi, this is Essie Patha-Murkerson from Law and Order. You are listening to Another View.
And welcome back. One of the most inspirational gatherings of gifted musicians from around the world are in town for the 2018 Virginia International Tattoo, which features skilled and talented military bands, drill teams, and performers. Our Lisa Godley recently spoke with several musicians from the Navy and Army bands who are proud to be participating in this celebration of patriotism and goodwill.
For this tattoo, I want to say we started rehearsing, I believe, about 2 weeks ago. And then we were augmented by another Navy Fleet band who joined us about a week ago. But the planning process started months and months ago, just making sure that we were fitting in with the Virginia International Tattoo's main theme and then coming up with a selection of songs. And there's a pretty impressive video that you have to come to the tattoo in order to see it.
Brandon Potts has been playing trumpet for the Fleet Forces Navy Band for the past 9 years and with the Virginia International Tattoo for the past 2. He says not only does the tattoo allow him to meet people from different countries, but it gives him an opportunity to watch talented musicians from around the world hone their craft.
Even though we don't always speak the same language, it's great. And getting to hear how they might play something compared to how we might play it, and seeing the amount of work that they put into their tattoo show, it's just great to experience it.
Fellow Navy band member Scott Helwig agrees. This will be the 6th tattoo for Scott, who plays percussion. The theme for this year's tattoo is Above and Beyond the Call of Duty, honoring, remembering, and celebrating Medal of Honor recipients. David McDonald plays trombone for the Army Band. This is his 5th international tattoo. David is 3rd-generation military and has a son who recently enlisted. He appreciates the transformations that can come with military service.
It's definitely a platform for which someone can gain focus. If someone's straight out of high school or even in college and just taking classes just because they were told it's the right thing to do, it helps one to gain their focus, gives them something to work toward, sense some camaraderie among other fellow members as well.
Not to mention seeing the world.
I've been able to travel to Korea, to Germany, to Japan. Most recently, I went to Afghanistan in support of Iraqi freedom.
But the biggest takeaway for Brandon, Scott, and David can be summed up this way.
We've been able to take the bow, so to speak, for the men and women that have served this country and are serving this country, getting to be the public face for everything that the military does, and really consider that a great honor.
There are evening performances for the 2018 Virginia International Tattoo on Friday, April 27th, and Saturday, April 28th at 7:30 p.m., and on Sunday, April 29th at 2:30 p.m. Log on to vafest.org/tattoo for ticket information. For Another View, I'm Lisa Godley.
And it is quite an event to go see. Log on again to vafest.org/tattoo. And stay tuned because we've got even more for you on this show today. We're rocking and rolling. We'll be right back. He is the man who needs no introduction, and we're always happy when he can join us on Another View. Our congressional representative from the 3rd District of Virginia, Congressman Bobby Scott, how are you?
Hi, Barbara. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Didn't I just see you a couple of days ago?
You always see me.
That's because you are the hardest working man out there. Absolutely. So there was an anniversary, I think it was last month, that you wanted to talk a little bit about in terms of our health. What's going on?
You just had a great presentation on diabetes. One of the challenges is that if you don't have health insurance, you're not going to be able to access that good health care that Dr. Newby is providing. When we passed the Affordable Care Act, we made health care accessible to everybody. We have the major factor in the Affordable Care Act is that essentially everybody pays average. If you can't afford the average cost, there are tax subsidies for low and moderate income people to make sure that health care insurance is affordable. You get a good quality package, essential benefits, and if you got a pre-existing condition, don't worry about it. You're paying average just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. There was an assumption in that if you were under the poverty level, you would get Medicaid. It's called expanded Medicaid. Federal government's paying 90%. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court said you can't make a state take the Medicaid. They have to accept it. And for bizarre partisan politics, a lot of states, including Virginia, refuse to take the money. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, the federal government's paying 90%. State puts up 10%. If you pay $1 to a doctor, the federal government pays 90%, state pays 10%, but the doctor's paying 6% income tax. Then when he spends the money, you get more tax on the sales tax. So, I mean, a lot of it's coming back in sales tax. But incredibly, a lot of the rest comes back because the state is paying for services. Like if you go to the University of Virginia Hospital and don't pay, well, that's just the state just has to absorb the loss.
Right.
But if you give that person a Medicaid card, 90% of the payment will be with federal money. That's money the state didn't have. And so the way it works is that if you expand Medicaid, incredibly, you actually make a profit. And if you look at the difference between the House bill that included Medicaid expansion and the Senate budget that did not, the House bill had more money for teachers, more money for the ports because they had more money available. The argument in favor of expanding Medicaid is, well, you get teacher salaries go up, ports get money. The S&P bonding people said that they would question our AAA bond rating if we didn't accept the federal money. Since you're spending more, you create jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. Rural hospitals are in trouble with the Medicaid money that they would have. They would be much more likely to succeed. And really, to add insult to injury, people who would get a Medicaid card, who have not gotten a Medicaid card, not insured, do get sick and do go to the hospital. So when somebody goes to the hospital, they got to pay a little extra to cover that loss. That's people with insurance in Virginia today are paying several $100s a year more because we didn't accept the Medicaid money. 350 to 400,000 people would get coverage. How do you to show you how bizarre it is? Let's turn it around. In order to deny people Medicaid, you got to cut teacher salaries, take money from the ports, jeopardize your AAA bond rating. You got to fire tens of thousands of people from jobs they would have gotten. You jeopardize rural hospitals, and add insult to injury. In order to deny people Medicaid, you've got to raise everybody else's policies, premiums, several $100s. Now, how mean do you have to be to do that? I mean, really?
Dr. Keith Newby is laughing here. He's going, yeah, you're right.
That's because all the House members are just trying to explain it through their last campaign, and many of them lost their seats, and the rest were, just couldn't explain it. They just changed their minds because you just can't explain why you want to cut teacher salaries and in order to deny people Medicaid. I mean, really? I mean, are you that? I mean, really? And that's what they're going through now. The House members just went through a campaign where they had to explain it to people.
Yes.
The senators haven't been through a campaign recently, and they're not explaining it to people. But they'll get the opportunity next year to explain what in the world is going on. Why are you so mean to people? Let the people get life-saving health care.
Well, Keith has a question. Go ahead.
My mic's out. Okay. It's Congressman Scott. I guess the take-home message on this is we as a community need to put pressure on our local legislators to make sure that they do the necessary steps to get this approved, because I know that's been an issue that's been long-standing. And I don't think people really understand. They kind of listen to the quote-unquote fake news of our time and not really understand what you're saying. I know you came and spoke at our health summit last fall, and that was amazing hearing, your how you deliver the message, which is clear and concise and understandable. But unfortunately, so it seems like a lot of people don't really know that. Mm-hmm. So anytime I get
part of the problem is that nobody's asking the questions. Why are you denying people Medicaid? And when the facts are out there, the people who are refusing to cover people with life-saving health insurance, in order to do that, they've got to cut teacher salaries, take money from the ports, eliminate jobs, and insult to injury, raise everybody's premiums hundreds of dollars a year in order to deny people their Medicaid. Are you kidding me?
Well, we need to get that message out then. I mean, I would love to be able to get that and promote that more, because people need to hear this. I mean, more so. I mean, because they really, I think a lot of the, and as people try to knock off, I think it's just because of, just talking frank taxes, that people still have an issue because it's related to Obama. And I think if we can really get past all that and get to the meat of the matter.
They got themselves in a box because they whine so badly about Obamacare,
right?
That now they got themselves in a box where, in order to be consistent and trash the Affordable Care Act, they find themselves in a position where they got to cut teacher salaries, take money from the ports, cut jobs, jeopardize rural hospitals, and raise everybody else's premiums in order to continue to deny life-saving health insurance coverage to 350 to 400,000 people. I mean, I guess they just hope they don't have to explain it to anybody, because it is such a bizarre position. It's one of the few positions where expanding Medicaid and doing that actually saves the state money. And and to say you don't want to save the money, you want to and you want to raise everybody's premiums several $100s a year. And then somebody says, I'm going to deny other people insurance, Dr. Newby, but I got to raise your premium several $100s in order to do it. I think you'd say, well, I'd just assume you provided coverage for the people and reduced my premiums.
Well, you know what? We are out of time to continue this conversation, unfortunately, because we've got to get back off the air. But we will, Congressman Scott, we will have you to come back on. And I know the state is still going back and forth on this, so this is an issue that people really need to pay attention to.
I'm optimistic that they're going to do the right thing.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Congressman Bobby Scott, for joining us to give us his take on what is going on in terms of Medicaid and Medicare for this Commonwealth of ours. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us here on Another View. Next week, the previously untold story of the plight of domestic workers in the U.S. and around the world and their fight for equality. Our theme music was composed and performed by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Victor Bowen is our audio engineer. And Alexis Smith, congratulations, Alexis, on your graduation. Answered our phones. I'm Barbara Ham Lee. Thank you so very much for listening to Another View.